in Galilee, and today is, what is today? Let me get this thing straightened out here. It doesn't want to straighten out. Well, it's the 10th of September, and it's 8:48 in the morning, and the weather is definitely changing for the better. The high today is briefly going to be about 90, and that's going to probably be for about 2 hours. And the low will be about 74, which is pretty September-y weather. Now they're saying tomorrow a high of 93, and then Tuesday 96, then down to 90, then staying in the 90s. Yesterday they were saying it was going to be in the 80s. So, they don't really know. The Israeli weather is deficient because the surrounding countries don't have good weather reporting, I suppose. I don't know. But anyway, it's still better than what it was, but it should be going into the highs in the 80s. By October, we should start getting highs of like 80, 81, 82, stuff like that. And then maybe the end of October highs is 75 and that kind of thing. So that's what we got going on here. And any slight reduction in the weather, which is just really what we have, is good for me. Because it was so brutal, June, July, and August, and even the beginning of September, horrible weather. Horrible. Don't ever let anybody tell you Israel has good weather. It has horrible weather. Although you don't have to shovel the sunshine, it keeps you in the house. In the snow, you're in the house with the heat, and then with the sun like that, at high temperatures, you're in the house with the air conditioning. The same being cooped up in the house. It's a little easier to deal with the sun and the heat because you could walk around in shorts and a t-shirt. You don't have to bundle up and stuff like that, but it's no fun at all. I call it punishment weather. That's my opinion. Okay. Do we have prayer requests? Let's see. We have one for SR Sierra Romeo. SR Sierra Romeo. The prayer is pray for guidance and direction from the Lord about a tough situation. So for SR Sierra Romeo, SR, pray for guidance and direction from the Lord about a tough situation. Okay? Alright. And let me remove that so I know it was done. Okay, let me go look at the chat or live stream, whatever you want to call it. Live stream, I guess. And make sure everything's working correctly. Looks like I got picture and sound, and put a couple of things up in the chat. Another couple of seconds. Okay, I'm done. Oh, well, let's talk about Hurricane Lee. I'll do some Bible work at the end, okay? Give people time to be in here. Hurricane Lee is down to a Category 4. It was headed towards New York, and then it was just the East Coast, and now it's veered steeply north. There's another hurricane behind it, Magava or something like that. And there was talk that the two could merge. There was a lot of people talking about that. Now that Lee is in front of this hurricane, probably by a day or so, and it's veering up sharply north, well, there's a chance that this second hurricane could follow it, but nobody's really, it's too far out, I think, to call that one. So it doesn't look like we're going to have a combining of the two hurricanes into a super hurricane. It could still happen, but there's not a lot of information that would make one think that it will happen. Okay? So they're talking about it making its hit on Long Island. Now remember, the news media, in print, the internet, on the TV, the radio, when it's hurricane season, they really beat the drum about these hurricanes because it increases their viewership. People that don't normally watch the news and the weather all of a sudden start watching the weather, 2, 3, 4 times a day to see what the storms are doing. Now, somebody who lives in Kansas or Wyoming is probably not that interested, but people on the East Coast would be. Long Island is on what's called the Long Island Sound, which leads into the Atlantic. And I'm not sure how many miles it is to Manhattan, but not much, because we used to drive from the Bronx to Jones Beach in Long Island. But let me see if I can get something from the internet. Um, 52 miles. That sounds about right. There's a small horizontal map here that if you look at it, it'll show you New York, and then you'll see Long Island. It's not very close, and it's not very far. Okay, so if it hits Long Island, there's going to be a lot of wind and rain hitting New York. But if it comes at Long Island as a 5, which they think it's going to upgrade possibly to a 5, New York's, like Manhattan's, going to get bad, what they call storm surges, and they'll have flooding. Is it going to be the kind of flooding that's going to wreck New York and the stock exchange? No. You might get a few inches or a foot. You might get a foot and a half, something like that. But nothing that's going to devastate the place. The subways may, in lower Manhattan that are underground, they may flood. You'll see videos of water pouring down the steps, things like that. They may have to shut the subways off, or it may not be enough to shut the subways off. The subways in the boroughs, which is Bronx, Queens, and Brooklyn, are above ground, so they're not going to be affected. They're like 30 feet up. So all this is going to destroy New York businesses off the table. It's very, very unlikely to ever happen, okay? But a water surge, I mean, it could be. Look, I saw surges when storms were hitting 50 miles away from where I lived in Florida. We would get 6, 8 foot rise in the water level, so that could happen. But that's not going to mean a lot of water coming into Manhattan, because Manhattan's built several feet over the water. I don't see anything massive happening there. Long Island is mostly residential with shopping centers and stuff. And it can take a lot of water. If it comes in there as a 5 or even a 4, there could be a very serious destruction of Long Island, which has a lot of high-end houses. They don't have ghettos and things like that. There's a lot of people that, I don't know if they still do it, but it used to be back in the 50s, more in the latter 50s into, the 60s and 70s. It was pretty elitist to move out to Long Island, and the people would take the commute, which was the LIE, Long Island Expressway, into the city to go to work, and it was a rough commute. An hour and a half each way or something. It was not simple. It was a rough ride, okay? And in the snow and everything, even more so. But they did it because they wanted their families to grow up near the water with a yard and, suburban living, away from the congestion of New York City, the smog and the noise and crime rates and so forth. It was, and it still is, a rather expensive place to live. It's got beaches and stuff like that. I got to take a look at what came in here, because this is Israel. You got to pay attention. Whatever came in wasn't the message. Guys, I'm going to I'll finish this. So, if it hits Long Island, it's going to devastate, and then it's going to go north and probably go up into Canada. Now, if it's a 4, not a 5, it'll still cause a lot of destruction and damage in Long Island. And as it goes north, like Rhode Island and Connecticut, it's not going to get it. Connecticut's a lot closer to Long Island Sound. They're on the Long Island Sound, so they're going to have problems. Okay, they're going to definitely have problems, but they're not going to get devastated or anything like that, or destroyed. Now, if it comes in as a 2 or a 3, it's New York City is going to experience not much of anything, and Long Island will still get some small, low-level flooding, and that kind of thing. It's not going to be a big deal. Houses will probably get destroyed if it's a 4 or a 5. Roofs taken off, garage doors blown out, power lines, if they're not below ground, they'll get destroyed. In New York City, the power lines are mostly underground. And this is what you're going to see. So we got to wait and watch and see, is it really going to heat up? Because the water could be warm and it could go to a 4 or a 5. But it's not shutting down any financial section. Guys, I've got to get dog food, and I'm out. I'm bare bones out. And I don't have an assistant I can say go order dog food, so give me a second. It's pretty quick. I gotta call because I gotta get it today. Up on me, I must have been a mistake. Hang on. Hello? He was calling me back and I was calling him. The phone went crazy. Hi, how are you today? Good. I need to order some food, please. I need 10 cans of the natural. Yeah. And I need the big bag of the natural dry, the wild flavor. Okay, you get it later today, right? Okay, Yom Tov, bye. That was that. Told you it'd be fast. Okay. Um, so I'm not really thinking that we're going to have any, monster storm with Hurricane Lee. It's going to be now. If it goes to a 4 or 5, yes. If it makes a landfall in Long Island at a 4 or 5, it's going to be a problem. It's a lot of private houses. The water, they're not elevated. They're down by the water, and the houses are going to flood. It could be major, but it's not going to knock out New York City, and it may touch Boston. We got to watch this. I would say in 2 days we'll know a lot more. Okay? All right. Now, the earthquake in Morocco was horrible. 3,000 plus people are dead, plus they've got a large amount of injured and missing. Missing doesn't mean dead. Missing means they're someplace and they're not telling anybody, and then, their phone's not out, is out, or who knows what. Injured could be injured, and sometimes injured people convert to being deceased because they're in bad shape. But it's a devastating earthquake to Morocco. They do not, I'm pretty sure, knowing what I know about Morocco, they don't build houses to seismic standards. Historically, Morocco has been horrible to Israel. Post 1948, they confiscated the wealth and property of the Jews and threw them out of Morocco. So, continuing whirlwind of the Lord, falling on the head of the wicked, year of recompenses. All right, which is the year we're in now, which is the same year as year of redemption. What's significant to me here is we notice a lot of earthquakes, but we don't notice many earthquakes with the death tolls this high. This is a significantly damaging earthquake. There's been more earthquakes around the world since in the high 5s, 6s, but there hasn't been any kind of death toll like this. Israel sent, there's about 50 or 60 Israelis that were in Morocco that are missing. There's a lot of Moroccan Jews in Israel. Obviously, Morocco threw them out, and some of them probably went back for some reason. I don't know why. But anyway, that's the story on Morocco. The next big event that has the potential to be huge, when I'm talking huge, I mean huge, it's a war. Azerbaijan and Armenia. Now, let me see if I can put a map up here of these countries. If I can get a good one. Google is tough to get good maps. Well, it finally came into focus. I didn't think it was going to come into focus. No, that's too difficult to follow. Let me try to find a better one. this focuses, it might be okay. Let's see. Yeah, it's too small. I'll get one, don't worry. Oh, I think I got it. But it needs to show Iran. And it's not. It's a good map, but it doesn't have it all. Alright, well, we'll get one, don't worry. This one has it all. It focuses. Okay. So the key things when I put the map up that you need to look at, and it's a little bit complicated. I'll hold the map up for a bit. You need to look at Azerbaijan. You need to look at Armenia. You need to look at Turkey. And you need to look at Iran. Okay? And here's the map. Okay, Turkey, Iran, Azerbaijan, and Armenia. All right. The initial fight brewing is Azerbaijan is bringing troops to the border with Armenia, and Armenia is bringing troops to the border with Azerbaijan. And they're getting ready to go at each other. They're bringing armor and tanks and soldiers and the whole bit. Now, this is where it gets absolutely delusional crazy. Azerbaijan is friendly with Israel. Israel's launched drone attacks into Iran out of Azerbaijan, which gives them pretty excellent access into Iran because Iran and Azerbaijan have a border. A few days ago, Israel sent several big cargo plane loads of something to Azerbaijan, and I doubt they were just troops. Israel doesn't roll that way. Advisors in Azerbaijan, yes. I would say the very minimum military equipment that was given to Azerbaijan would be a bunch of Iron Dome systems to knock down drones and rockets and missiles coming into Azerbaijan, which they could put by the border of Iran. Okay? Now, Iran is an ally of Armenia or friends with Armenia. So, Iran told Azerbaijan they would attack pieces of Azerbaijan with missiles and rockets if a war breaks out. The Azerbaijanis invited the Iranian generals to come sit with them and have a meeting and discuss it. And I think at the meeting there was definitely an attempt to calm the situation down, but you're not going to calm Iran down. Okay? And Iran has tremendous fear of Azerbaijan knocking out Armenia because that gives them more access to Iran. And they are, I think as the negotiations went south, which I'm rather sure they did because nobody's moving their military equipment away from the borders, they probably threatened Iran. Okay? Israel is sort of kind of trying to build a satellite with Azerbaijan to attack Iran, but that's not really working out. Okay? If you try to attack Iran and you're, 1,000, 1,500 miles away from Iran, and you're going to use an air force and missiles and rockets when you're a country like Israel, you can really give Iran a whooping because they can't really mobilize at any distance like that. But when you're on their border, like Azerbaijan, well, see, Iran has a bunch of tanks and ground soldiers and armor and, stuff like that, and they can roll in, okay? And Azerbaijan's not going to have any kind of an air force. Let's take a look at Azerbaijan's military forces, okay, how big they are. It's really a challenge to, spell Azerbaijan, I typoed it. I tend to ignore Wikipedia military force entries in Google that are rather irrelevant to me. I'm going to try to use global firepower. Is that it? No. There it is. Okay, 2023. So it's current. Let's see how powerful they are. Let's start with manpower. The total population of Azerbaijan is 10.3 million, so it's similar to Israel. They have 380,000 military, but only 65,000 are active, and 300,000 are reserve, and 15,000 paramilitary. Their air force, or their air power, is pretty dismal. 17 fighter jets, which is pretty close to what Iran has, but how modern they are, we don't know. They got 86 helicopters, 16 attack helicopters. They don't have much of anything when it comes to air. When it comes to tanks, they're weak. 920 tanks. Self-propelled artillery, 167. All right, that's something. Towed artillery, 319. Rocket artillery, 323. Something, but not much. In terms of a Navy, they're completely deficient. 4 submarines, 1 frigate, 13 patrol boats, 9 mine warfare. They're really weak when it comes to military, okay? Let's take a look at Iran. And then we'll look at Armenia. And again, we'll use global firepower. I don't think Wikipedia does a good job at all. Okay. So Iran's got a population of 86 million, so it dwarfs Azerbaijan, right? And it has total military personnel of 1 million. 575,000 active, 350,000 reserve, 90,000 paramilitary. Their air power is mostly antiquated stuff, but 196 fighters, but how old are they? 86 transports, 7 refueling tankers, 126 helicopters, 12 attack helicopters. So they're weak on helicopters. Land forces. See, this is where Azerbaijan has a massive problem. 4,071 tanks. That is pretty bad for Azerbaijan. 580 self-propelled artillery, 2,050 towed artillery, and the rocket launches 1,085. So they pretty much dwarf them. In terms of Navy, they got 7 frigates, 3 corvettes, 19 submarines, 21 patrol vessels, 1 mine vessel. So most of their Navy and Air Force isn't so hot, but some of the naval vessels are more recent. So Azerbaijan is not a great threat to Iran at all. Armenia, this is all 2023 updated military information. Armenia, let's take a look at them. They have a population of 3 million, which is very small. They have 259,000 military, 45,000 active, 210,000 reserve, and 4,300 paramilitary. Their air power is 4 fighters, 2 transport, 36 helicopters, 20 air attack. They don't have much. 519 tanks, 38 self-propelled artillery, 145 towed, 174 rockets. So Armenia can't stand up to Azerbaijan by themselves. Okay? That's not going to happen. Now, Azerbaijan has a northern border with Russia, but so far we haven't really heard about Russia sounding off anything. So, if Iran, there's a piece of Azerbaijan that's between Armenia and Turkey that's separated by Armenia. So Azerbaijan is probably trying to take a piece of Armenia away and grab that other piece. Now comes Turkey, who has a border with Armenia, that little piece of Azerbaijan, and Iran. Turkey is a NATO nation, and let's take a look at Turkey's military strength, because they are threatening Armenia. Again, global firepower. The manpower with Turkey was a population of 83 million, similar to Iran. 775,000 military, sort of like Iran, but Iran's at 1 million. And it's 425,000 active, 200,000 reserve, 150,000 paramilitary. Okay. But remember, troops with a rifle don't do much on the battlefield these days. They have 205 fighters, 83 transports, 7 tankers, 478 helicopters, 110 are attack. So their air force is perhaps more modern than Iran, but it's not overwhelmingly different. They had 2,200 tanks, which is about half what Iran has. 1,038 self-propelled artillery, which is a lot more than Iran. 2,100 towed artillery, a lot more than Iran. And 516 rocket launchers. The Turkish Navy is 16 frigates, 9 corvettes, 12 submarines, 34 patrol vessels, and 11 mine warfare. So Turkey is not an overwhelming force against Iran. Okay? So Azerbaijan and Armenia were ready to go to war. Iran is telling Azerbaijan they're going to enter into it and snip off that little piece of Azerbaijan and help Armenia by missile attacking Azerbaijan. America says they're supporting Armenia. Okay? Israel is supporting Azerbaijan. And Turkey will attack Iran. If this happens, will Turkey attack Iran? Yep. I don't think there's any doubt about it. They'll attack Iran in whatever Iran's doing in Armenia or against Azerbaijan. They won't attack Iran's homeland. I don't think. But you never know. Now, if Iran attacks Armenia and Iranian troops in Armenia, will he be able to call Article 5 in NATO? All for one and one for all, and get NATO to come in and help him? No. If Iran strikes into Turkey, yes, he can call NATO. What are Iran's chances against NATO? 1 out of 100? 0, basically. No chance. No, they don't have a chance. It'd be a very fast operation that would disable the Iranian military rather quickly, and it would end at that point. They wouldn't ground invade Iran and occupy it and split it up, but you never know, they might. America may think that's a great idea, and they may do it. Iran has no chance unless Russia and China help them, which there's probably about a 50% chance that would happen. Okay? Now, if anybody attacks Turkey in the home front, NATO comes in. So could NATO tell Turkey, well, the reason you got attacked is because you started fighting with Iran and Armenia? Nah, because Turkey controls the Bosphorus Straits, which is a little pincher point that the Black Sea passes through the Bosphorus Straits to get into the Mediterranean rapidly. Now, if Turkey, as a member of NATO, closed the Bosphorus Straits to Russia and her allies, it doesn't let their ships pass, well, then Russia is in a bad way, and then Turkey would let the NATO ships into the Black Sea and wipe them out. So Russia would lose their naval presence in the Black Sea, opening them up to a land invasion through the water. See how complicated this is? This is crazy complicated, okay? So, what the heck happens? What do we do? I don't know. I mean, it's so complicated. America will possibly get angry at Israel for supporting Azerbaijan. If it's not crazy enough, Tiger Man Kim in North Korea, as Trump used to call him, is sending 300,000 to 400,000 troops to help Russia in Europe somewhere. It's unspecified. Russia has 450,000 troops in just the occupied part of Ukraine. That's almost 500,000 troops. Tiger Man Kim is sending more troops. Now, Tiger Man Kim of North Korea maybe is going to deploy these troops to help with this Azerbaijan-Armenia mess. America would like to help Armenia knock out Azerbaijan, because then Azerbaijan becomes Armenia, and America could put a big set of military bases and missiles in Armenia pointed right at Russia. So Russia would have a vested interest in saying Iran's our ally and they asked us for help, so we're sending 100,000 soldiers or 50,000 soldiers or something. Now, if they got these North Korean troops to play with, they could easily send 150,000 soldiers over there with armor and stuff like that, air support, drones, all this. And this could be a fight like what's going on in Syria. ISIS is fighting rebel groups against Bashar Assad. Bashar Assad's rebels, Hezbollah's there, Hamas is there to a very slight extent. America's fighting in there, Turkey is fighting in there. It's crazy. Russia's fighting in there. Iran is fighting in there. It's nuts. It's just nuts. And the same is spilling over into Iraq. You need a scorecard to keep track of what what's going on. There's so many people fighting, so many different factions in these countries. It's incredible. Armenia and Azerbaijan could become that way. Now, it could get a lot worse. Iran could get into the war. Russia could likely get into the war. Turkey could likely get into war. Then NATO gets into the war. Now, America and NATO get to fight against Iran and Russia and even North Korean troops in an area they don't really care about. They care about the European Union more than they do these places. They don't care about these places. This could cause NATO to be fighting Iran and Russia and Azerbaijan. I mean, it's crazy. If America and NATO get Erdogan mad and tell him stay out of it, stuff like that, he could just go to Russia and say, hey, I really changed my mind about NATO, let's be friends. And Putin will fly him into Moscow and give him a $5,000 dinner and, make a deal with him and supply him with as good a weapons as Russia has, which isn't that good. But it's better than what he has now. And now Russia controls the Bosphorus Straits, and in the event of hostilities breaking out with NATO and Russia, he has Erdogan close the Bosphorus Straits, which gives him the security of being able to keep dominant in the Black Sea. His ships would still be open to air attack and drone attack, and missile attack, but the American submarines and naval vessels wouldn't be able to get in the Black Sea because the Bosphorus Straits is very narrow. And in a simplistic, immature form, all Erdogan would have to do is station, maybe 5 artillery pieces spaced apart by a half a mile in a bunker that's 6 or 8 foot thick concrete or something like that, or 12 foot, real secure bunker. And when a ship goes through the Bosphorus Straits, they just start hitting it with artillery, which is child's play. The ship is relatively slow moving and it's not going to get out of the way of the artillery. Now, in reality, it would probably be missiles, short range, simplistic missiles, and possibly artillery pounding these naval ships, and it wouldn't take much to put them on fire and sink them, or have them dead in the water when they can be destroyed again. You know, so it's easy. So Turkey has bargaining power. They're trying to get F-35s out of America, and America's not doing that. But they will give them F-16s, advanced ones. So where does this go? Well, I don't see peace talks, except Azerbaijan tried to sit down with the Iranian generals. That's a waste of time. How do you negotiate with Iran? It's absurd. You can't. I mean, they don't negotiate. The only thing they're going to ever agree to is a completely crazy deal, 85-95% stacked in their favor. They won't negotiate like Arabs. They're not Arabs, they're Persian, but they're going to negotiate extremely hard, like they do with America. Remember, Obama sent them $1 billion in an airplane, and it didn't do much good. And that's all they're going to do. So don't think you're going to have peace very easily over there. Now, if Azerbaijan drops its plans to have a war with Armenia, Iran's just going to go home and forget about it. They're not going to go anywhere with it. You know? The fact that Turkey is threatening Iran means Turkey's using the big stick of NATO to go bat Iran around. Turkey has troops actively fighting in Syria and Iraq. He'll do it. And Iran will probably move forward with their threats against Turkey. It's stranger than fiction. This is so crazy. You know, the Lord is moving the so-called chess pieces around on the board to accomplish Jeremiah 30:11, which is the destruction of all the nations that he had the Jews exiled into over the centuries, which is at least 100 countries as a dead bare bones minimum. One second, please. I'm going to take a quick break. I'll be right back. It'll be quick. Oh, sorry, buddy. if this war goes, I don't think America's going to do much about it. They may start giving weapons to Armenia, but they're going to want to distance themselves this thing because of Turkey and Iran. I don't think they'll get into it too much. Maybe they'll try to stop it with the UN Security Council or something like that, but I don't know if they're going to do much of anything. Israel will just supply weapons and technology and advisors. Go, Yaffa, go. To Azerbaijan. They're not going to fly planes and attack Armenia or anything like that. They're not gonna do it. Turkey will fight aggressively. And I believe Iran will. And this could get NATO into it. Now, if NATO gets into it, the way that would have to happen is Iran would have to attack Turkey on their homeland, hit Turkey itself. And they might. They may be so scared of this because it could be used in a future strategy logistically against them or geographically. They might hit Turkey, and if they hit Turkey, then they got NATO. Russia might hit Azerbaijan. He may take 100,000 soldiers or something from North Korea and deploy them with his tanks and planes for air cover and artillery and to go into Azerbaijan with a like number of Russian soldiers and give the Azerbaijanis a real nightmare. I don't know. It could die out and go nowhere. Just a Cold War. It could blow up into a hot war, and it could, because Turkey's in there, it could affect NATO. If Iran's fighting and Russia's fighting and North Korea is sending soldiers over there, you better believe China will get into it too. Who knows? It could be nothing or it could blow up into something massive. We don't know. It's a real mess. That we do know. And it still has potential to just calm down. Temporarily or permanently, probably just temporarily. It's happened before. They've shot at each other across the borders and then it calms down. It may happen again, but this time it seems way more serious. Now, Afghanistan is itching to attack Iran, the Taliban. So, in the event that Iran gets itself into a fight with Turkey and Azerbaijan, the Taliban might decide this is a good time to mess with Iran. Iran has to worry about that. Iran also has to worry about civil war. So the situation is so complicated. Very complicated. Let me look in on the chat. All right, let's cover some more stuff going on, which is no shortage. We've got the protesters in Israel against Netanyahu's so-called judicial reform, which is basically weakening the courts and ending the democracy. Because there's three ingredients to a democracy: legislative, which is the Knesset, which Netanyahu controls, mostly, not entirely, but pretty seriously. The executive branch, which is Netanyahu, and then there's the judicial, and he's having trouble with the judicial. They're meeting on Tuesday, and they're going to start most likely setting aside some of the laws Netanyahu had his Knesset pass to weaken the courts so he could squirm out of his 3 active, currently in trial, 3 criminal cases, giving him a maximum of 16 years in jail. So, yesterday a car plowed into the pro-democracy protesters, the ones against Netanyahu on the Tel Aviv highway, and injured 5. So the people are very slightly beginning to fight against each other over this, but the Supreme Court has indicated they're going to strike down the reasonableness law that Netanyahu passed. And they're probably going to go after the law he had the Knesset pass that says the Prime Minister could only be removed by the Knesset with a vote of 75%, 3/4, and only for health care reasons. And that is not correct. And they're going to probably strike that down. And the big fear is this. Netanyahu is between a rock and a hard place. He's eventually going to pass a law that says if the Supreme Court knocks down a law the Knesset or Congress passed, it's a one-house Congress, 120 members. 61 out of 120 is a majority. Okay. So if they strike down a law the Knesset passed, let's say the Knesset passes a law that says Netanyahu's term of office is extended from 4 years to 11 years. Just make it something. Supreme Court says no, you can't do that, and they say the law is null and void. Well, this law that Netanyahu wants to pass is then going to, what it says is that all the Knesset has to do in a case like that is vote on it again and get a simple majority of 61 votes, and the law stands. So he's basically making it slightly inconvenient to pass laws that the Supreme Court says are not legally possible. That makes him a dictator. And it'll make Israel a very bad place to be. So, what next? After that, if he gets away with that, he's going to pass what's called the French law, which several countries around the world have, which says the Prime Minister is got immunity from any criminal or civil prosecution based on anything he did while he was Prime Minister. So the criminal cases go out the window, and Netanyahu is free from criminal prosecution and is now a dictator. So the Supreme Court is starting to whittle away at this, and where they're going with it is, it seems they want to set Netanyahu aside and tell him he's not fit at this time to be the Prime Minister because he has current criminal cases. And when they let him run for Prime Minister a few years ago, he said he would not do anything to modify the judicial system to gain anything on his criminal cases. Well, they were stupid and they believed them. And that's pretty much what he's been preoccupied with these last 36 weeks or so. So they're going to knock down that Knesset thing where it has to be, you can only take the Prime Minister out for health reasons, and you need 75% of Knesset. That's absurd. So that means you can't take him out of office if he raped his secretary and filmed it and put it on the internet. You know, stuff, I mean, it's absurd, you know. So, when they take that away from Netanyahu realizes that if they get away with it, he's going to lose his criminal cases and wind up in jail for many years, and he'll probably die in jail. I think he's 73 or something like that. I'm thinking. Netanyahu's fighting for just about his life here. So they don't want to see Netanyahu as an interim prime minister. Let me explain this to you. If Benny Gantz and Yair Lapid, his big political opponents, do a vote of no confidence, and Netanyahu loses, and all the polls are saying he'll lose by a lot. Benny Gantz, that what happens next is normally they might go to the Knesset and say, Herzog, the president, could go and say, does anybody here can form a coalition? Well, if Benny Gantz says, yeah, me, and he gets the votes, then they make him prime minister. But I think the normal mode is not that. The normal mode is they schedule 90 days in the future another vote, okay, for the Knesset. And when the Knesset, whoever has the majority of the conglomeration of parties in the Knesset can appoint the prime minister. Now, Ben Gvir and Smotrich are going to do bad in this poll. Shas and United Torah Judaism is going to do bad, and Netanyahu's Likud party is going to do bad, and they're going to lose by a lot. But this 90 days is usually closer to 110, 120 days when you get finished with all the, messing around before they set the 90-day date. He would be the interim prime minister. And they're afraid of that because he knows that he's going to lose the election, and then the courts are going to accelerate the end of his trial because he's dragging it out for years. And he's going to get convicted and go to jail. He might not go to jail for 16 years, maybe more typically 2 or 3. But that's the end of him then. Okay? And they might give him fines of, 5 or 10 million shekels, or who knows what, so he could lose his house in Caesarea, or I don't know what else. So, the big problem is Netanyahu may decide to say, the Knesset voted, and we passed the law, and they're striking laws down that there's nothing wrong with. And therefore, the Supreme Court is guilty of treason, sedition, undermining the government, overthrowing the democracy, and he can place them under house arrest or arrest, close the Supreme Court so they can't meet and do anything. And basically, he's moving to dictate. Putting him in the interim prime ministership for that 100 days or so is dangerous because Netanyahu may try to throw Israel into multiple wars. Because if Israel's in complete chaos, there's not going to be any Supreme Court cases he could, I mean, he could destroy Israel to stay out of jail and just get on a plane and go someplace, There's talk about Biden, well, the Biden administration, I should say, trying to do things to stop him from being the prime minister. It could happen. It could happen. I don't know how they would do it, but, Israel's been trying to get a no visa program to go to America, like EU countries have. It's not that they just take their passport and they show up at America, flash their passport, and walk in. They got to do some paperwork in their home country to get approved by America, and then they can do that. So Netanyahu's been trying to get America to do that as a big help to the Israelis. A lot of Israelis like to go to America frequently, and they have to go to the embassy in Tel Aviv and wait online a long time. It's hours and hours, pay for a visa, and then they get a visa. Now, business people that could substantiate they have a job, get letters from the company shows they do business in America on some significant level, they could get a 10-year visa in their passport. What a 10-year visa means is they can go whenever they want to America, but they can't stay more than 6 months. So then they got to leave for, I don't know if it's 3 months or 6 months, probably 6 months, something like that. But if they just want to go and they stay for 2-3 weeks, they go home 2 months later, another 2 weeks, that tends to be fine. So they could come and go out of America. They can't work in America. They can't really reside there, but they could, knock around, visit friends, family, go to Vegas, go to Miami, go to Disney, go to whatever they want to do, right? And the Biden administration's not letting that happen because of Netanyahu. So that's designed to put pressure. The thought is if Gantz was in there, they would give it to him. They're saying because there's Palestinians, as they like to use the term, that have American passports, and Israel doesn't want to let them just come into Israel by flashing their passport at the border and walking right in. So there's, because of terrorism, so Israel's not cooperating with Biden, and Biden's not cooperating with Israel, whatever, so it doesn't look like it's going to pass. This is what you see. Not a good, healthy situation. So, in the war front in the Pacific, the Taiwanese wake up in the morning and they got Chinese planes coming close to their airspace or going into their airspace, and they're surrounded by anything like 4 to 9 naval vessels, and it was the same this morning. So the tensions are still high there. We understand now that America is using these new high-tech submarines, I think they call them Columbia class, and other different class submarines, and sending them into areas where there's tensions. They have torpedoes now that work in shallow water, and they have a 650-pound warhead that was tested on a grounded oil tanker, and it was another test of it also, I believe, and when it hit the boat, it split the boat into 2 pieces, which means it's fairly immediate sinking. And these torpedoes, if they miss the boat, they turn around and come back and hit it, try to hit it a second time. That's pretty stinking dangerous, The torpedoes basically go about 60 miles an hour. Some of them go faster, perhaps up to 100 miles an hour or something like that, but they're usually shooting at the ship at a distance of, 2 to 5 miles. So the travel time is significant, and the ships pick it up with underwater radar, sonar, they detect it, and they could, like destroyers will go 35 knots or 40 miles an hour, something like that. So if they push the pedal to the metal and they start turning the boat to the side, there's a good chance that they'll have enough time to get out of the path of the submarine. So then the torpedo realizes it was a miss, and it turns around and comes back again. Well, they might be able to do it again, but when it turns around and comes back at them, it's probably going to do it at a distance of a few hundred yards. So it'll probably hit them. So America's probably, what have they got, about 75 submarines? They've probably got a handful of submarines deployed in the Pacific near Taiwan, Japan, and South Korea. Maybe by Australia, but probably not. They don't need a lot. Maybe they got 4, 5, 6, maybe they got 8. These submarines are very difficult to detect. And they could also launch missiles from under the surface. They're 40 feet below. They launch the missile. When the missile breaks the water and it's in the atmosphere, it turns its engines on. It starts flying. I believe they shoot it up with compressed air. And the enemy will be able to pick up where the missile was launched from and get pinpoint coordinates and then launch a missile right down at that spot. They have anti-submarine missiles, but the problem is that the submarine just launches maybe 1 or 2 missiles from that area, which probably will take a good minute or so, and then it just slinks away to another location, which only has to be 1 or 2 miles away. And it surfaces again and does it again and again and again. So it's very dangerous to the enemy, so they don't necessarily need to deploy their aircraft carrier groups there. Russia launched 32 drones yesterday into Kiev, I believe it was, in Ukraine, and 25 were shot down. Now you're going to say, wow, that was awful. No, Russia got a victory because 7 drones made it in. And that's a swarm attack. And today, the nations don't have real capability to defend against that. Israel has the laser that they have put it on ships already, Israeli naval vessels, so it's got to work. And the ultimate way to deal with swarm attack is to have 3 or 4 drones in that area, 3 or 4 lasers in that area to attack onslaughts of drones or missiles. So the laser can shoot down a lot of drones at the same time. It can fire maybe as many as 5 or 10 bursts in a minute. So if you got 3 or 4 of them protecting an area, you can take the drones out. And the world is going heavily into a drone war. They're relying on drones more and more. I'll show you what this is. This is very interesting end times event. Okay? That's from a lightning strike yesterday. And lightning strikes the emblem of faith of the Fisher Christ, causing its destruction in La Cornilla in Chiapas, Mexico. This happened on the 9th, which is yesterday. Very interesting. Okay. All right, the protesters, this is what's going on. It's getting very hot here in Israel. Leaders of the anti-government protest movement at the weekend said there could be no compromise because all moves by the current government are suspect. Some, like protest leader Shikma Bresler, went so far as to label Netanyahu and his government as Nazis. The message is clear. The only acceptable outcome is to remove the current Netanyahu government from power. And the protests are getting hot. Now, I think if Netanyahu attempts to lock up the Supreme Court and the Attorney General, I don't think the military and the police are really going to back Netanyahu up, and the people are going to rise up against the government. Because they know if they do nothing about it, Netanyahu's going to cement in, and he's going to be dictating Israel to keep his own life out of jail, and it's going to be catastrophically bad in Israel with that crook running around. Okay. Moving on. The Ireland government has a lot of people from Ukraine that are avoiding the draft in Ukraine, and they're saying that they're going to ship them back to Ukraine, extradition. Kind of an unusual circumstance, but it is what it is. The military junta in Niger accuses France of aggression, claiming collaboration with some ECOWAS countries such as Benin, Ivory Coast, and Senegal. The junta people say that armored vehicles are positioned in Benin, as well as helicopter gunships and French soldiers in Côte d'Ivoire, with the intention of attacking Niger. So far, no one attacked Niger. I'm sorry, the death toll in Morocco is over 2,000, not 3,000. I think I got that wrong. The CCP, China's plan with Japan is to conquer Japan and split it up into 4 states. And China and Russia each get a piece. So far, we have yet to see France go in and do anything. It's one thing to store troops up on a border and threaten. It's another thing to actually go in and fight. And there's a big difference between the two. Some say that the military intervention is imminent. Well, some of the other African states might actually go through it. But Macron's doesn't have the stomach for it, I don't think. I'm sorry, I underpredicted how many troops North Korea is going to send. It's 300 to 500,000, up to 500,000 troops to Eastern Europe. This is going to be an amazingly big war. Russia now has 420,000 troops stationed in the occupied part of Ukraine. So, you can imagine it gives them 500,000 more troops. They got almost 1 million troops, and they start pushing against Ukraine hard. It's going to be serious. The European Union, not NATO, European Union is going to modernize the Moldova Republic Army. I guess give them equipment and help with training, I guess. Russia is going to provide North Korea with food, oil, and technology and send military experts to North Korea to help them establish military factories and nuclear facilities and even help them produce bioweapons. The Chinese guy will provide North Korea with the necessary technologies and materials. So Russia's going to get the advantage of slave labor, which is what North Korea basically does to the people that work for them. They're like slaves. I'll be right back. So Russia has a way to get more weapons cheaply by trading food, oil, and technology with North Korea. And he endangers the world because North Korea, with their slave labor and raw materials and technology help from China, is going to be a weapons manufacturer of pretty good weapons. Turkey actually threatened Iran using the words that if Iran intervenes militarily against Azerbaijan, then the Turkish army will not stand by and will intervene against Iran on behalf of Azerbaijan. I don't think Turkey would attack Iran, but if he did, and he's crazy, if he did attack Iran, Iran would fight back against Turkey and then NATO would get called in. Wouldn't that be something? I don't cover the G20 because it's just not anything that I think it's of any importance. Libya's now got hit with heavy floods. That's different. A protester with a megaphone on Saturday in Israel, probably in Jerusalem, gave this message, and he did this with a megaphone. I wish health on this perfectly matched pair, one of whom suffers from mental disorders, and the other who can't stay hydrated. BB was recently hospitalized for dehydration. May we next year see them in the cemetery? The rest of the crowd reportedly cheered when the man concluded his well wishes. Yeah, they dislike Sarah tremendously. And I think Netanyahu is mentally ill, severely, and the wife too. He lies all the time and thinks he could fool other people and all that stuff. So you could see things are definitely going on. That's for sure. Man, I never saw the world like this before. All right, let's go to Philippians 3:21. Let me check the chat first. All right, we got a question, and I like questions. Leviticus 12:8, talking about turtles. Why? Let's look. Leviticus 12:8. Okay. And if she be not able to bring a lamb, then she shall bring 2 turtles, or 2 young. I think he means turtle dove. Yeah, it's a type of the bird dove, a turtle dove. The translators were too dumb to, translate it correctly. So it's a turtle dove, which is a less expensive sacrifice compared to a lamb. So the poor people could do this. That's all that he's saying. It's not hard to understand. The translation and all the English translations stinks. Okay, that's it for my questions. All the people are going out, and not all, but a lot of people are going out now that I'm not talking about the boys. See, they just come in for intel, as they call it. They don't understand it's not going to help them when it goes down. But what are you going to do? They don't want to hear the truth. So swallowed the wrong way. Philippians 3:21. We'll go to 3:20. For our conversation is in heaven, from whence also we look for the Savior, the Lord Yeshua HaMashiach, who shall change our vile body. Let's check that word vile. Depressing, rank, the lowest state. Okay, so it's basically referencing the flesh body, that it may be fashioned like unto his glorious body, according to the working whereby he is able even to subdue all things unto himself, including death. So that's just another scripture showing us we're going to have a body like his when we see him. 1 Peter 3:18. 1 Peter 3:18. For Christ also hath once suffered for our sins, the just for the unjust, that he might bring us to God, being put to death in the flesh, but quickened by the Spirit, by which also he went and preached unto the spirits in prison. Now, spirits in prison does not mean, San Quentin or, a prison, right? Because they're not spirits in there, they're flesh people. He's talking about the dry bones. Okay? Telling them they're going to get out and get resurrected. Now, most people don't believe this, but you guys know that. Okay. All right. Romans 8:23. Romans 8. And not only they, but ourselves also, which have the first fruits of the Spirit, even we ourselves groan within ourselves, waiting for the adoption, the redemption of our body. The redemption of our body. It's not a rapture. And the redemption will happen in the year of redemption, which is the year of recompenses, which we're in it now. It started someplace around August 1st, give or take some days. Okay? There you go. I just want to keep pounding this in. John 5:21. Yochanan Hamesh. For as the Father raised up the dead, and quickeneth them. Quickeneth means bring to life. It's not a rapture. Even so, the Son quickeneth whom he will. Okay, so the Son, Yeshua HaMashiach, can give life to whom he will. He has the power to do that. Okay? Luke 24:30, 31. Luke. And it came to pass, as he sat at meat with them, he took bread and blessed it and brake and gave to them. And their eyes were opened, and they knew him, and he vanished out of their sight. Vanished. What does that word mean? It's really Strong's Greek 855, not appearing, not seen, invisible. So his resurrected body, being, whatever you want to call it, body, was able to disappear and vanish. He was also able to change his appearance. Now, when we see him in heaven, he's amazing. He has, eyes like lightning and white hair and feet like brass and stuff like this, right? Now, if he was appearing like that on the earth, I mean, it would have been hard, people may not known who he was, So when he went up to heaven to reside at the right hand of God the Father, until God the Father, Jehovah, makes his enemies a footstool, he is the glorified Christ. And when he returns in the heavens, he will when we see him, remember there's an appearing in the actual coming down to earth with New Jerusalem, but the appearing, which precedes the other by a bunch of years, we get changed, we be like him, but we're going to be like the glorified Christ, so it's going to be interesting to see this and experience it. See, we read about this in Revelation 1:12. Now, I don't know if we're ever going to get glorified the way he is, because he's tremendously higher than the people that are going to be converted. And I turned to see the voice that spake with me, and being turned I saw 7 golden candlesticks, and in the midst of the 7 candlesticks, one like unto the Son of Man, clothed with a garment down to the foot, and girt about the paps with a golden girdle. His head and his hairs were white like wool, and white as snow, and his eyes were as a flame of fire, and his feet like unto fine brass, as if they burned in a furnace, and his voice as the sound of many waters, and he had in his right hand 7 stars, and out of his mouth went sharp 2-edged sword, and his countenance was as the sun shineth in his strength. And when I saw him, I fell at his feet as dead. And he laid his hand upon me, saying unto me, Fear not, I am the first and the last. I am he that liveth and was dead, and behold, I am alive forevermore. He has eternal life. Amen. And have the keys of hell and of death. Write the things which thou hast seen, and the things which are, and the things which shall be hereafter. The mystery of the 7 stars which thou sawest in my right hand, and the 7 golden candlesticks, the 7 stars, and the angels of the 7 churches, and the 7 candlesticks which thou sawest are the 7 churches. Okay, so this is allegorical, and if you read Zechariah 4, you get a lot more out of this, and it ties heavily and directly to the 2 witnesses. Okay? Okay, I don't have many questions. I wanted to take today to give you an idea of all the crazy events going on in the world and show you that things are advancing at a pretty good clip. And, you know, it's just one day you'll wake up in the morning and it'll be ongoing with the wars, you know. They're all afraid to start the wars, and then all that the Lord will do is make them more afraid to not start the wars, and then you got the wars, that's all. Well, they'll eventually get there. They're scared. People are giving them tossed salad. They don't know what's going on. That never happened in their life before. They're scared. You know, they're going to eventually crap out. And you're going to see the government of Israel, this democracy, go away pretty soon. And the 2 judges, which are the 2 witnesses, because you've got to be a prophet to be a judge, and the 2 witnesses are prophets, so stated in Revelation 11. Will be running Israel as the judges, along with the 70 counselors. That's in Isaiah 1, and you see it happening when the war of Zechariah 12, Jacob's trouble, begins. The 2 witnesses are already running Israel. So one of the biggest signs that the church world doesn't have any cognition of is the Ezekiel 34, which is going to include the rabbis and the government, and the rabbis are heavily in the government anyway. So there you have it. So Tuesday, the Supreme Court starts the ruling. They may not rule on Tuesday. They may not rule for a week or 10 days, or they might. I don't know. But it, you know, Netanyahu's between a rock and a hard place. He's got, if he tries to deny their power, you know, he pretty much needs to arrest them, and that could cause a major revolution. But you know, he's desperate to stay out of jail. He'll throw the country into revolution, and I don't think God's going to let the country fall apart. I see nothing there about that, and that's when the two witnesses will probably take over, and they may be the ones that accomplish Ezekiel 34. It would be very hard for me to imagine a war accomplishing Ezekiel 34, because it will destroy a lot of the real estate in Israel, and we're going to be needing those houses for the second Exodus, so I'm not seeing it. We had a rotten water leak that broke out on Friday, couldn't find it. It was under the house. We got it fixed early this morning. I don't know how much water we wasted. I'm dreading the water bill. The repair was cheap, but oh, it was a nightmare. It was a nightmare, but it's over with. We got it plugged up early this morning. Beulah's still jumping the fence, and she runs around and then comes right home. So maybe we'll try again to pray that the dogs don't jump the fence. She did it right in front of me. I was screaming at her when she did it. I got to put some obstacles on. She goes over the gate, which is lower than the general fence, and I got to put some obstacle up there so she can't clear it. I don't know. Maybe I'll tie a towel up there. She won't know what it is. You know, it just, she's got to be careful because she's not stupid, and she knows when she's up high in the air, and she has to make sure she lands on her feet. If she sees something where she'll get tangled up, like in a towel or something like that, she's not going to go. She's so nasty. I mean, she knows we don't like it when she does it, and she still does it. So I got to rig something up. Pray I get that rigged up good, please, that I could stop her from jumping the fence. The other dogs are contained. She's a pain. So, what else? I'm Moshe, my wife is Rivka. Please pray for us. Pray for our peace, safety, joy, protection, and healing of our bodies. Pray for our finances. That's an important one. And thank you for the offerings, those of you that are donating. And pray for better videos. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem. Pray for our animals and pets to be happy, healthy, and whole, and not jump the fence or run away. We keep praying, we'll probably get somewhere. And please pray for cooler weather yet in my area of Israel, the lower Galilee. Please pray for that. And I'll do what I can to keep you posted on current events, and so you should be subscribed, because I'm in the habit of doing out of nowhere live streams in the day or night when something happens. And things in Israel should probably start happening pretty quick. You see, and that's the big sign when democracy is gone. Then we know Zechariah 12 is going to follow. We know the temple and tabernacle are going to be there. We know the two witnesses will be running things. That's the big deal. That's a big one. Okay. In Zechariah 12, not one Israeli gets a sprained ankle. It's Jacob's trouble. Great is Jacob's trouble, but he shall be saved out of it. Gog and Magog comes down the road some years, and they don't get saved out of it. They get raped, looted, pillaged. Half of Jerusalem goes into captivity. This is a whole different ballgame. Okay? And well, we've been covering that for years, actually. So, what else can I tell you? That's about it, I guess. So, I send my shalom to all those who love Yeshua HaMashiach, and make sure you read your Bible every day, please. It's very important. Even if you just read this much, it's better than nothing. By a lot. By a lot. Just that much. It'd be tremendously better than not reading it at all. Reading 2 or 3 pages, even better. And, you know, faith cometh by hearing, hearing the word, you know, or reading it, you know. And pray. Make sure you pray every day. It's important. Just pray. And do your spiritual warfare. That'll really build up your faith from the experiences people have shared with me. Okay? And there's still a threat of war with Hezbollah in Lebanon, substantial. Gaza is sort of on the quiet side, but we don't trust them. And Syria is just a complete mess, you know. It's like a Times Square rush hour traffic jam where all the cars are pointed in crazy directions and jammed up, and you know, Syria is just a mess. I mean, and we know Damascus shall be a ruinous heap. For Lebanon, we know Lebanon. Open up your doors, let the cedars of Lebanon burn. The whole place won't get wiped out, but it's going to have trouble. And there doesn't seem to be any peace going on between Israel and Saudi Arabia. It seems pretty far apart. Biden's released a plan. We'll probably prophetically never see this realized, where there's going to be some railroad network from India to Saudi Arabia to Israel into, I don't know, Turkey, Europe, something like that, to move goods around. They're trying to pull India and Saudi Arabia away from BRICS. Look, BRICS is not a winner. Okay? It didn't work, and it's not going to work. They don't have a gold-backed currency yet. They're just trading in each other's currencies. It's not working. It's not going to work. The countries there don't get along with each other, and it's really not anything you're going to see do any damage. Let's take a look at the U.S. dollar before we go and see how it's doing. We'll bang it up against some currencies that are substantial currencies. All right, let's see. We'll put it up against the euro. $1.07. So the dollar is actually gaining on the euro. So 1 euro buys $1.07. So it's gaining on the euro, the dollar, after BRICS, right? Let's run it up against the British pound. The British pound's $1.24 now. It's gaining on the British pound. It was more or less the same. I don't think it recently gained. Let's just keep it about the same. The Canadian dollar is 73 cents. It's gained slightly on the Canadian dollar, the US dollar, right? Aussie dollar, Australian dollar. No, British pound, so I didn't take for the change. I was confused for a second here, big time. Okay, now I got it. 73 cents it did that. Okay, so it's actually gained slightly. The Canadian dollar was at 75 cents. So, wait a minute, that's Canadian. Okay, so it gained slightly against Canada. Let's try Australia again. It didn't take. It still didn't take. Hold What's wrong here? We'll get it. Now I got it. Is 63 cents. It's gained against the Australian dollar. So I told you this. Let's try CHF, the Swiss franc. It's difficult to knock the dollar down. They didn't do it at all. Let's just take, Swiss franc $1.11, more or less the same. It's not going anywhere against the Swiss franc. Swiss franc might have creeped slightly ahead, but that's not a major currency. I just use it as a marker. So I don't see the dollar going in the toilet, okay? And I told you that, it would take massive catastrophic events like, 6 Category 5 hurricanes hit America on the east and west coast and Gulf of Mexico in the same month, and that may not even do it, or an invasion. That would do it. It's very difficult to knock this out. Look, BRICS never got their gold-backed trading currency established yet. Like I tell you, some country goes to is in BRICS and say, okay, I want to put on reserve $9 billion of gold for trading currency. So China and Russia are going to say, great, you can put the gold in Russia, or you can put it in Beijing. Where do you want to put it? They can say, I ain't sending my gold there. And they say, well, how do we know you have the gold? Well, you can come look at it. Great. How do we know after we leave you didn't return the gold to some other country you borrowed it from, or you sell it? It's not going to work. Nobody, who in their right mind is going to go? You think Modi's going to send his gold to Beijing or Moscow? In a million years, Modi from India would not send his gold to Beijing or Moscow. This is something you ain't never going to see happen. And they can't put these countries on the honor system. So they're just trading in their own currencies. And Putin's SWIFT system, his own SWIFT system is operational. It's not, guys, it's a flash in the pan. It's not going anywhere. It's not knocking out the dollar or anything like that. It's not doing it. Okay? But it's a threat to America, and they don't like it. Okay? So if they pull Saudi Arabia out of this BRICS thing, the UAE will follow suit. And starting the trading route for the train in India is their attempt to try to pull India out of the thing. See, it opens up a lot of markets because trains can be 100 cars long. And, they're not going to run a high-speed train. They'll run a train that goes about 80 miles an hour, 90 miles an hour, something like that. So, but the train goes 24 hours a day, right? It doesn't go to sleep. They have rotating crews, and they sleep. Usually in the caboose or something, they're not going to walk through 100 cars. They'll have a car what do they have in there? A little refrigerator, cot beds, bunk beds, beds. They probably got a 4 or 5 inch mattress, They have a kitchen where they could cook with a refrigerator, and they can make coffee and tea. And they probably have a TV or something in there where they can play videos. They might have internet, they might not. And it'll be air conditioned or heated, or depending on the season. And it probably has a toilet and a shower. They could probably take a 5-minute shower, and lockers. They could change their clothes. So if you're going to go from India to Saudi Arabia, it's probably going to be a 3-4 day train trip, 5 days or something like that, and 100 cars of product like food, rice, or something like that. Imagine 100 train load cars of rice. It's a lot of rice. Or other things to eat. So they could trade with Saudi Arabia, and then the train goes back the other way, right? so they could carry stuff the other way and sell it to India, so they could, you know. But this isn't going to happen. You know how many years it would take to lay a train thing like that? 4 or 5 years. India knows that, and India knows that Biden may not be president when it happens. But look, we know prophetically there's no time for it. So all it is at this point is blah 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 blah. You know. Does Biden mean it? Yeah, I'm pretty sure he means it, but it's not God's plan. It ain't gonna have time. They believe everything's going to continue the way it is with them in power for perpetuity, and they're very wrong. And that's it. So it's an interesting news story, but it ain't going to go anywhere. New York City, the mayor came out publicly and said, we're being destroyed by illegal immigrants. There's thousands hundreds of thousands of them hitting New York City. Well, they did it to themselves. They made themselves a sanctuary city harboring illegals. So the New York City police cannot ask questions to people. Where's your identity papers? Where's this? Where's that? Unless they did something wrong. Like if they're driving a car and did a traffic infraction, they demand the driver's license and things like that. So they're coming to New York because it's a sanctuary city, and the New York state and the city has weakened the police. If somebody commits a crime that doesn't hurt another person and it's not a high-level crime, like I think if they go in a bank with 2 machine guns, 2 guys, and start firing bursts in the ceiling and say, give us the money, that's not going to qualify. But, they basically, even for assault and rape, I think, I'm not sure, they let them out on their own recognizance. It means they don't have to post bail. So they arrest them, they bring them to central holding eventually, and they get booked and fingerprinted, mugshotted. Then, at the earliest convenience, which could be several hours, they appear before a judge, and the judge releases them on their own recognizance. They never show up for their court date. They run around the streets and do this again, and they get arrested and rearrested, and the judges still don't put them away. And they have a terrible crime wave. Stores are leaving. Shoplifting is rampant, and assaults, burglary. I mean, it's just horrible what's going on in New York, and this is likely going to destroy New York. He's right. But he doesn't have an action plan. He's just getting on the TV and belly aching and crying. He doesn't present any action plan. So, what's going to come of it? Nothing. Okay. I send my shalom to all those who love Yeshua HaMashiach, and I am out. Thank you.